Yay. Welcome to the Lila Life Show. I am your host, Linda Andrews, and I am so happy to bring with you today Debra Schatzki, founder of BPP Wealth Solutions. Welcome to the show, Debra, and I want to share a little bit more about you.
Well, thank you. It's such a privilege to be here. I was looking forward to it in so many ways.
Good. It's good. There's some medicine that I feel like comes through whatever direction we go, which I'm always excited for. Your journey particularly is a testament to the transformative power of financial planning and wealth management. I know from your story, you grew up witnessing some financial challenges that your family faced, and that helped you ignite your passion to help others, which I just can't wait to hear more about the story and how those patterns continue on or that you can stop them. And in this episode, hearing from your unique perspective and achieving financial independence and understanding the true essence of wealth and the importance of self-reflection we talked a little bit about before the show in the financial planning process. And the last thing I want to mention, your book, Chaos to Joy, featuring your inspiring stories of clients with their financial successes and happiness. So we'll get to pull some of those insights for our listeners today. And here's some secrets. We want the secrets. I'm on the path. I have a not so secret. It's more of a journalistic endeavor about, can you really be a billionaire? Can there be more female billionaires? It's just like a curious question that I'm maybe in my life's work going to achieve or not. I had bought the domain Billionaire Blueprint one day, just like, what if we could crowdsource all these playbooks and help more ladies become billionaires? And what would be different in the world? I'm curious. But so for you, a little bit about your origin story. How did you get started in wealth management and get your firm going? And I'd love to hear a little of the family story that took you here.
That's so fun. It's amazing that, looking back over the last, almost 40 years, what you can accomplish. Because when you're in the center, or in the beginning, I should say, you have no clue. And, when I started, I first of all, I had no choice. So let me just back up a second, because my mother and father were divorced, as I said in the book, and my father's company, which was very successful, wound up going bankrupt because of the riots in Newark. And he had a jewelry manufacturing company. And so as a result, my mother was a single woman, 3 children. Her husband left, so my father left. They were divorced, and he lost his business. So my mother had no money. And what made it worse is we're Jewish, and my grandparents sat Shiva for my mother, which means that they considered her dead for divorcing my father.
Oh.
So it was a really emotionally very trying time in our family, because all of a sudden you have a family and the next minute you don't. But my mother, being a really positive influence, just didn't let that stop her. It was incredible to watch. So, so here we are, in a very different situation. And what was lovely about it was that we had to work together to really make ends meet. So I was the oldest of the kids, so I babysat, and my siblings, were much younger than me, and my mom went to work, and we finally were able to have somebody come in and help us. And, the next thing you know is you're all working for your mom, because that's what we did. And we were her helpers. And, she was, that's how she babysat. So she went to work on Wall Street, looking for, a way to make money. And she was lucky in that she was a administrative assistant to a really awesome Wall Street guy. And he said, Judy, I can't pay you enough. Let me see if I can get you a job. So she got a job for a Goodbody and Company, which was an old, really established brokerage firm. And when the Dow went from like 1,000 to 632 in the 60s, I think it was, or it was early 70s, the late 60s, she just said, I can't do this. It's a very lucrative business, but that kind of fluctuation scared the kajeebis out of her. And so she wound up interviewing commercial real estate and insurance companies. She went to work with Guardian Life Insurance because they had a pension department, which was all about saving money with guarantees, the old defined benefit plans. So she was so excited. And we all, worked with her, watched her, and she was the first woman to be Man of the Year
Wow.
in 1970. And we were like, what's this? But that was the award, it wasn't,
Wow.
like Mom,
Yeah.
had that happen. So she made all of us get all finance degrees. So all of us have
Wow.
one finance degree, because
Huh.
she said, I don't care what you do. I just
Mhm.
want you to understand money. And it still amazes me that we have such a low level of understanding around finance.
Mhm.
But that's another story. So it turned out that we all did. So I wound up getting my, going to school for accounting, getting my CFP, getting my, a lot of other stuff. And the bottom line is my sister did, my brother did, and we all wound up working together for a little while.
Okay.
And my sister went out and worked in the for Lehman Brothers and those kind of firms.
Mhm.
So she broke out. And then my brother and I broke out of the family business in the early 90s. And that was really difficult. And we broke out because it wasn't appropriate for us to be in a family business.
Mhm.
Uh, there was a lot of issues, and there was no way that we could make it work. So thankfully, with the help of therapists, we were able to break up the company and keep the family together. And we wound up, I created BPP Wealth, and my mom is still working with the people that she transitioned to. Uh,
Wow.
and that's been a long time. And the two of us and all of us, my brother created a cybersecurity company and
Okay.
phenomenally well. And my sisters retired, but it wound up being a very incredible transformation. And it
Mhm.
only came because we also started taking classes. We started trying to figure out, how do we communicate better? We did Tony Robbins classes, we did landmark, I can't even tell you how many classes. And we started doing that as a family, which was actually,
Wow. Yeah.
because this was a big deal. I mean, we went from not having any money to trying to figure out what we're going to do with our lives to actually finding this financial services path, and then figuring out how we're going to work together separately
And still do a holiday.
and still do holidays. Yeah. Yeah. And hang out pretty regularly, which is nice.
Wow, what a journey. I feel like there's a point where, you get the finance degree, you come from the upbringing. When did it all start being more real for you in terms of what you're learning and it actually being applied in your own life, that you're feeling confident to do the work with others? Can you remember that?
I do. In fact, Tom Wolfe, not the Tom Wolfe that writes the books, Tom Wolfe, who was actually a financial planner years ago,
Mhm.
created an analysis called a CNA, Capital Needs Analysis. And I was young when I saw that. It was the first time in my life that there was a process.
Mhm.
Wow, a process to actually helping somebody figure out what they needed.
Mhm.
How much cash flow do you need? How much insurance do you need? How are you going to retire? How are you going to pay your kids' colleges? Just all that stuff. And it was really transformative for me. As I went to school for accounting, the CNA, the capital needs analysis, really taught me something that was so useful, that if you could create a process um, that people could really understand, it
Mhm.
doesn't matter how complicated anything is, you
Mhm.
can actually go through it in a way where it could be understood by anybody.
Mhm.
And so that's what I started to do. And I started to really transform, because all the financial companies I was working with had no real process. It was
Mhm.
just, here's the book and go out and sell.
Mhm.
Sell what? To whom? I
And
mean,
why?
why? Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that question?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So, and especially being a woman in the financial business, I mean, let's
Mhm.
be honest, it's
Mhm.
still less than 24% of all the financial planners in the world are women. 24%, I think we're awesome at it.
And I think the last I knew, it was definitely over 50% or at least 50-50 of assets that you're managing are women. I know your firm, you work a lot with women, but women have money, contrary to popular
Big
belief.
time.
Yeah.
Big time. And if they don't have the money directly, like my biggest clients, my private equity clients,
Mm-hmm.
who am I working with now?
Mm-hmm.
I'm working with the spouses, the women.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because they've aged out of wanting to do any of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully, everyone has married everyone in our companies, clients, they've married really smart women. Well, you know what? If you have a process and you're trained, people pick up on stuff really fast.
Mm-hmm.
And women are amazing. I love working with women. I feel so blessed every day that not only is our firm all women, but that, most of our clients are a combination. They're either couples.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of legacy male clients, which we adore,
Mm-hmm.
and they're married. So it's really awesome.
And you can see, so often in marriage or in partnership, if one partner, typically it's the woman, is excluded from the conversation, and like it perpetuates the financial illiteracy and creates this power dynamic within the marriage where, sometimes the husband's making all the decisions and the wife's left out, and then they're not getting up to speed on, and then if there is that inheritance, it's like quite the large learning curve, and all that could have been avoided through the education process starting much earlier on. I mean, I learned what stocks and bonds were when I studied for my Series 7 for the first time. So it was quite the learning curve. I was like,
that's an understatement. The options were more fun.
Yeah. I still don't know how I got through it, but I did. Wow. Really awesome. It's ironic too, because I started at Guardian when I was in college, actually in Red Bank. So it's always I was with International Planning Alliance, one of their subsidiaries. That was my
Vince Sedona and all those people.
first stop. Yeah. But
That's so amazing.
So
yeah,
for you with these early, go ahead.
No, I'm good.
Yeah. With your earlier on in your career, like, did you know you were going to write a book? How did you, when you came into BPP Wealth, launching that? I mean, these are huge decisions along your career. Did you have a big vision? Was it some of the work you were doing with the Tony Robbins and the Landmark? How did you start to shape that path?
It's really because of that education, but it was the strategic coach. So Dan Sullivan and Babs Smith started a company called the Strategic Coach.
Okay.
And I wound up getting involved early on. And because I wanted to do something dynamite, I knew I wanted to do something special. I just didn't have the tools to do it. And that's why I kept doing classes. Like, I wanted to learn how to communicate better. I wanted to learn, I constantly am educating myself, that you can't, I don't think you could ever learn enough about a lot of stuff. So
Agreed.
Yeah, no, it was really fun. And it was funny because, so my husband's an actor. My husband's a voiceover announcer, and I was working many hours, and there was no way that I would be able to have a really successful relationship, which is one of my main commitments, if I continued working the way I did. So a bunch of people said, you should do the strategic coach. So I did the strategic coach. And what I loved about the coach is it actually allows you to be in a room with a lot of entrepreneurs, and you get to join. And I used to go to Toronto. So there were literally people from all over the world, predominantly Chicago and Toronto. And you actually always have processes. That's what Dan's famous for, of filling out these quarterly, monthly, annual, or if you have a bad experience or good experience process. And it was really through the strategic coach that I started creating the process and creating the name. So BPP is build, protect, preserve wealth for generations. So build, protect, preserve. And everything we do around our work is about building, protecting, and preserving. And what's amazing is that there isn't anybody who I've met ever that doesn't want to build, protect, and preserve their wealth.
Mhm.
And now what's happened, it's become more about true wealth, which is a very different conversation, which happens like a fine wine over time. Because in all the years that people are doing such great financial work,
Mhm.
the first generation is enjoying it, the second generation is spending it, and the third generation is starting back to work again, because nobody's really talking about the core values
Mhm.
and really having that be what families work on, and have the money be after we've really created this incredible conversation with our family about what is really the core values we want to see in our children, our grandchildren, and the way we want to operate as humans. So in doing all the strategic coach work, books were always part of it. I mean, so many people in the strategic coach writes books.
Okay.
So that's how I was inspired.
I love that. And the build, protect, preserve, build, protect, preserve, build,
Yeah.
protect, preserve. For a lot of people, especially in this audience, they're on the build step. I think in today's world, we have more distractions than we'd ever think could be possible. And I feel truly concerned about financial literacy, like the story of the wealth gap. I know it's real, but I'm wondering if it's like this self-limiting, self-defeating prophecy for a lot of people that they could never get ahead. And that really concerns me.
Mhm.
One thing I observed when I was graduating college in my early 20s, I realized I was raised in a certain lifestyle, that the time I was raised in that lifestyle, I didn't know what it cost. And so there was a little bit of a wake up call to my 20s. And as part of that, I had racked up a significant amount of consumer debt,
Mhm.
and I had never had debt up till that moment. And that was a rough decade and a tough learning curve. And that was like, quote unquote, me. And so I feel like I was we had allowance, we had some level of financial literacy. My dad worked in finance, and it was really challenging. And I'm just curious, in that build phase, what kind of advice you give people and you see with your clients, and probably your clients with their next generation as they're helping empower them. What's working out there to help kind of wake people up to the reality of what is possible? I got to a question.
Yeah, no, it's really a great question. So most people have no clue because they are not educated.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to segue back a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I met my husband in Landmark, and one of the things that he wanted to do, and that's why we wound up working together and falling in love, was create a microfinance organization. So we started Project Enterprise, and we actually supported thousands and thousands of New Yorkers. We had a microfinance organization in all 5 boroughs, and we worked both with women and men, where we went in and provided them with some business training, and then we gave them the ability to create a business plan and apply for loans. And that's what we did. We lent them the money, and every time they paid it back, they got more money. And through the whole process of the microfinance education, they were being educated every week on different things that they wanted to know, whether it was bookkeeping, we'd bring in bookkeepers, whether it was accounting, bring in accounting, law. And what I watched and witnessed was people that were so uneducated in a lot of things, how fast and quickly, given the opportunity to actually improve their life and have their life experience be enriched, it was super fast.
Wow.
And how good they were. So many people get a bad rap, but they get a bad rap because they don't have the wherewithal, the tools to actually do what they want to do. I don't know anybody that doesn't want to live a good life, and it's just that they don't know how, or they're prevented because of where they grew up or their education, or they have so many things and barriers, that it's just such a transformational process when people actually stop and say, wait a second, let me help you. So I really believe that education at any level and finance matters. And I really believe that we need to start it earlier, and we need to make it real. If it becomes personal to them, like nobody actually went through with you, I learned from watching everything fall apart. That's a really awesome way to learn. I don't recommend it.
Yeah, not the first option we'd want for everyone.
Please don't don't do that. Let's have a different conversation about, okay, wait, this is where you are, which you're not really happy with, or you want to be somewhere else. Let's create your future. Let's create your future based on really what your dreams and goals are, not based on getting by.
Like what's possible that you don't even realize yet versus just what you know.
Exactly. What's possible that you don't, and that's what we really love to do, because I find when we start to match people's planning with these really, really important things that they want to do, a family vacation, that maybe they haven't done that, just a week off. I mean, I can't believe that, but just a full week off, being able to pay back their student debt, and be able to save for what they want. People have so many questions, but they don't really have the platform on which to create the solutions. So I find that, it's really, really important that all of us work together to start allowing people to build their plans and build their plan based on reality, how much money they're making, what they're spending, what they have, versus what they want to have, and ultimately what they dream to have. And then start building the plan as to reality, what you have to do that. It's amazing when you start doing that, how many people actually start saying, oh, you know what? I can do that. I really can. I can not go, and I'm sorry to say this, not have a latte every day. I really, because if that's going to be the difference between me having a vacation or not, maybe I'll make coffee at home. Or maybe I want to go for school, but I don't know how to pay for it because, the cost of well, let's look at other options. And that's what I think we all need to stick together and do. We need to be able to work towards having these really rich lives with reality and with really creating dreams and going for it.
The reality piece is so critical. And it's like, we would love everyone to reach their goals. And that's not where a person is today yet.
Not at all.
Right. But if you're not willing to see things as they are, I see this as like shame, guilt, all the things, but there's just such kind of denial, avoidant behavior. And then that perpetuates it even longer. It just seems like almost a mind-numbing process that people can get stuck into. And I don't know necessarily the solution, but the problem seems very loud and clear that cycle can be really easy to get into.
Oh, it is. And the solution I find is journaling, is really, really being very clear. Like we do our family future individually and together, or I should say I do our family future.
Yeah.
And everybody in the family is like, what do you think about this? And our family future is, what do we want to accomplish over the next year? What do we want for our health, wealth, family, fun, and if there's anything else. So doing something like that, and then seeing where you are on a regular basis in your goals and your dreams, it's really transformative. And writing down every day, what are the 3 things that if I do today would make the biggest impact? Because so many people avoid doing the important things first, because they think it's going to take too much time. So they just keep doing all the little shits, or the little stuff. And the difference is that if you really just do those 3 things that would make the biggest difference, you could go golf after that. I mean,
you can do anything.
How your life starts to transform because you did those those things that you're uncomfortable with, that you know they're really important, and you get them out of the way.
Do you notice in that shift from the doing all the little shits to the big three, how over time the little stuff starts to not really be compiling up because you're doing everything? I think if you were to take a week off, a day off a week for 12 weeks, I believe you would have 78 action items a day. That's if you did one thing. That's actually a lot in 12 weeks. And then if you're doing 3 a day, that could be almost, we'll say like 260 or whatever. That's a lot. And I feel like you do that for 2 quarters, connecting back to the build phase of the wealth circle. Like, what can you do in 6 months, 12 months? How can that compile? And what a great support network it sounds like with the strategic coach and some of the different programs that you did. I feel like in the personal development world, it can be easy to look for the new thing and want to find what else. And some of it's so simple. It's like painfully simple. You got to do it, and you have to keep doing it. And there's going to be new challenges and new heartache, but you just keep going and you get through it and you learn and you grow. And like, that's the journey. and
but it is.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's why I say there's the, difficult road where there's no process.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's an easy road, which is creating a process and following it. And it's like one of the things I love you talk about is, building your business from 0 to $1 million is not easy. That's actually, once you're over the $1 million mark, which I've done a bunch of times, it's so much easier. I want to be clear that starting from 0 to $1 million is really gut-wrenching. It takes so much. But having a process to really do measurement of what's important and actually do those important things makes it so much easier, because we get so distracted by BS, and that BS is not going to pay our bills. It's not going to make us feel like we've gotten what where we want to get to. It's a rat hole, and we've got to keep people out of it.
Yeah. The social media, the technology, it can just be such the sucking. It was 2012 that I started looking up social media addiction. I was like curious about it, and you couldn't really hear anything. There wasn't anything then. And that's how I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, but he has, so that's how I found his first book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And, 11 years later, when the social media addiction is like, and not just social media, it can be the phone, it can be different things within the phone, but it can be life stealing, and that's not getting you towards your goals. And that's time and time again shown. So for you, I know you work with some women who have married into the bigger conversation around wealth, build, protect, preserve. And I'm certain that there's other women that have built wealth themselves, including yourself. Are there any patterns of success that you notice with the women that you work with and men that, in addition to what you've already shared, the big three, continuing going, working with the coach, that have really helped you or guided others along the journey?
Yeah, it's so interesting because, in my book, I go through 5 stories. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because they're all transformative. These are perfect examples of human beings that really got thrown a real pile of stuff and not good stuff, and we're not trained on what to do when things go really bad. And thankfully, in all of the 5 stories, all of them were told to call my office. And why I say that is because we live in a country where there are so many professionals that, like the book you were just talking about, there's so much information on how to really get through stuff, but there's not a lot of planning firms that focus on really helping people solve big problems. And that's one of the things we do. So in the 5 stories, the first one was really just a simple fix, divorced mom of 2, we do the plan and we realized she was $50,000 short a year. That's not a little, that's a lot. What do? Well, you go tell your boss. Are you kidding me? My boss is going to throw me out. You don't know that. You need to say, I don't spend money crazy. I'm a single mom with 2 kids that are about to go to college, and I need help. It's amazing what happens when you ask for help. Believe it or not, a lot of people will help, but you have to have the confidence or the desperation to do it. So when I told her, I said, go ask. You have nothing to lose. We'll redo the financial plan based on what you can afford. But why wouldn't you go ask?
Let's start with number 1 here. Can you get a raise?
Can I get a raise? Yes, it's a ridiculous raise. There's no question. But they can say yes, no, or maybe so. So when she did, and she went and asked, and they said yes, it was such a transformational experience, because like most women, they don't have confidence around money. So that's something. And men, a lot of people don't have confidence around money. So just to actually have a plan and be able to see it and then say, I need help. This is what I did. Can you help me? I need $50,000. I know that's a big request, but that's the only way I can really pay my bills and, help my kids with their education.
And stay with the company.
And stay with the company.
Yeah,
exactly. Which is what I really want to do. And that's why I'm in here. It's that kind of dialogue that really changes your whole life, because now that person went from not being confident around money, having very, very incredible jobs, but, you can have incredible jobs and not pay your bills. What good is that?
Right.
So that distinction is something that I really like to bring up. And that's why it's really important that you get a plan, and do a thing, and do it really as soon as you can. And the second story is about, a woman whose husband died at 50.
Wow.
I mean, mother of 3, husband has a massive coronary and just dies. And he knew about it and didn't tell her. And he went on a spending spree that was beyond anything I've ever seen.
Wow.
And so here's a wife, mother. Now, her husband's deceased. She really never worked. And she's now an owner in a big business that she knows nothing, doesn't know what to do. And she's got debt up the what do? Well, it turns out, thankfully, that the president of the company, who did not have ownership, was one of my long-term clients. And when she died, he said to her, you got to call Debra immediately. I know she'll take care of you. And I'm telling you, that was tough. I mean, I spent 3 days just basically in her apartment trying to figure stuff out. She had no clue. Who's going to die at 50? Well, people do. But you don't think that way. And it was gut-wrenching just to go through and see everything. But we put together a plan, and the next thing you know is, not only did she go to work for the company, and not only did she make what she needed to make to be able to live the way she dreamed, but not only did she actually get her mother-in-law to sell the business to the president who was running it. So she owned half, and the president owned the other half, and really build this incredible business together. But then she had a dream to retire after 10 years after this all happened, and she did.
Wow.
And that wouldn't have happened. She would have lost the business. She would have, it was horrible.
Could have gone right into bankruptcy. I mean, it sounded like it could have been a lot of tough.
That's where it would have gone.
Yeah. In that situation, or a situation like that, as time goes on, everything's more and more tech enabled. Are there any password sharing recommendations that you have? I mean, if you're not sharing every single account login, understanding exactly where things are at, are there tools that you recommend your clients to be able to, Okay. So,
Passwords are probably the biggest problem today, I think.
yeah.
There's quite a few of them,
Mhm.
but we use LastPass.
Okay.
And the reason that we like it is because it's really a very secure site for all your
Mhm.
passwords. So you just need to have the password to get into LastPass, which is one password.
Mhm.
And you have it on all your computers. So you're not entering the passwords. It's automatically when you sign into your computer and you sign into your LastPass. So you don't forget your LastPass number,
Mhm.
which is one instead of 9 million. You
Mhm.
actually have all your secured passwords right there.
And
And
then your family could have that
we
one.
give it to those, yeah, we give it to the
Yeah.
key people in the family in a
Mhm.
very
Mhm.
secure place.
Mhm.
And, so people have accessibility to it. And that way they can really, that's the worst thing. I mean, how many
Mhm.
people get locked out of their computers? They can't get into their bank accounts. And, that's another story. But yes, that's what we do.
Awesome. Good recommendation. Similarly, if they're legacy planning in the business, similar to that woman's transition out, and I'm curious in your own journey, you go from being yourself the owner, you have all the passwords, and then you're slowly growing your team over time, and other people need to have the passwords. How do you help people in that planning process and just getting the understanding of the importance of that shift? I see this a lot where you can't secure funding, let's say, from a venture firm if you don't have any legacy planning in place, right? But I think a lot of people get caught in those early stages of spinning their wheels, doing everything themselves, and it's hard to get out of. It sounds like the strategic coaching was a big part of helping you with some of that modeling. But do you remember that with yourself and see other clients of yourself go from they're doing everything to starting to build out more of an enterprise?
Yeah, it's really scary.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it really is,
Mm-hmm.
especially when, you see a lot of, bad behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't really live the life you want to live unless you start to trust people.
Mm-hmm.
You can't build a big company unless you really start to learn how to hire well and create good checks and balances. You
Mm-hmm.
can't have a great life unless you're really loving people and trusting them and learning from our mistakes and
Mm-hmm.
and using tools. I mean, we use Colby, we use so many different personality tests, not only for my team, but for our clients,
Mm-hmm.
because what a concept. Can you imagine giving people their information the way they like it, not the way you think they like it? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, what a change. But it's really important to have checks and balances and learn how to do that. And
Mm-hmm.
in order to build a business, you need to actually um, be able to have simple processes and systems so that you can see when things are out.
Mm-hmm.
And that, because if you catch them fast, like anything, then you
Mm-hmm.
have less damage.
Mm-hmm.
But, as a business owner, I was hacked early on. And
Mm-hmm.
thankfully, my brother owns a cybersecurity company. So we were able to catch it. And thankfully, at that time, Bitcoin was nothing. But
Mm-hmm.
it was a real, and we had so many procedures in place.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened is a bad actor came in through one of the computers that we never used
Mm-hmm.
when a new employee turned it on to get something. And then
Wow.
so that computer didn't have the proper protections. So
Mm-hmm.
you need to make sure that you're really protecting your passwords, you're really protecting your computers, and that you have a way to, like we have a couple outside cloud systems that we use
Mm-hmm.
so that we're not relying on just one
Mm-hmm.
for our clients' information.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes a difference so that at all times, we do really good summary notes so we can pick up from there. Our clients can pick up from there. We have all live data on one of our systems for the clients so they can see where their money is at all times and how it transfers. And you just have to be really smart about your checks and balances, but you
Mm-hmm.
have to use tools. You can't grow a business and you have to trust people and you have to do reviews and be honest with people in their capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody is great at everything. In fact, nobody is.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something in leadership for me. I'm like, if we could get everybody doing what they're the best at, what could that create? And so many people don't even get to tap into what they're great at. And then, they come more alive because they're doing what they're great at and they love. And like, what emerges from there that we don't yet know about? That's what I'm
so
curious.
true. I mean, it's such, and when you think about it, there's so many testing. I mean, God, testing is so big. I mean, if you ever read, what is it, Ray DeLeo's book, like the guy has a card for everybody, there's like, has a scorecard for everybody, but it's not a naive thing. It's a brilliant thing, because if you really know people's capacities as to what they're great at, and the more that we can push things to people's capacity on what they're great at, the happier they are at work. Some of my employees, calling a client is really gut-wrenching, where some of them, they can't wait, so you just need to put the right people in the right seats on the bus.
I love that. And speaking of Dalio, I know we're in the midst of pretty serious geopolitical uncertainty, political uncertainty, curiosities in the world. How are you helping your clients right now take a deep breath, stay calm, stay the plan, feel that confidence? It sounds like your whole process is a helpful tool in times that can feel more uncertain. But if you want to I know we're coming to the end, but I'd love to hear your guidance during times that can feel like everything's out of control. It's a lot of making sense of each day, it seems like.
It's, so this is where social media has gotten really bad, really bad. So if you can't control it, don't watch it. That's what I say.
I love
if you
that.
have no control over it, don't go there. That's why what we do is so important. We make sure, and I say to everybody, make sure you know what you want to accomplish this year. Just write it down. I put mine, we all have our books, my book is just a pink book that says kind, beautiful, and capable of big things.
Yeah.
You can buy them, all these gorgeous books on Amazon. And the first thing we do is put in what's really important to us. What do I want this year? What do I want for my family? What do I want for my health, my wealth, and for fun? And I make everybody do that, because it's times of these unrest in so many places that if you do every day, when you start to get upset, those things that you're really interested in accomplishment, you move them forward. It gives you a positive energy of control. You don't have control over the world, but you do have control over your actions. And if you start moving yourself forward, and all this stuff becomes more noise than it taking over your life. And we just need to work together to make sure that we're moving our life forward in the way that we can. And the political unrest we plan for, and the death of somebody we plan for, and the disability of somebody we plan for, and schooling and financial hardship, all of this can be planned for if we just really start doing it.
You have to start.
You gotta start. You just gotta start. And you gotta stop watching the news. I don't watch anymore. I read all the time. I get lots of papers and articles and stuff, and I choose what I read when I read it. Now I read all the headlines and I see what's going on. I am so not naive.
You're not paying attention. You're aware of that. You have a pulse on everything, but not in a way that's just taking away your time, your life, distraction.
Will not do it. And that's why when you even go to our website, one of the things that we highlight is what we're watching, what we're cooking, what we're, eating, where we're eating. It's every day we have to make it as rich as possible. So that's what I say. When you're actually addicted to media, and you're actually finding yourself getting nastier, sadder, and just not living your life, you got to turn it off. That's a choice. Turn it off and start living your life.
So good. So the rich life, what does that mean to you?
Oh my God. To me, my richest life means that I'm hanging out with people I enjoy as often as possible. So I'm constantly booking, whether it's parties or socials or, going to see things. I love concerts and shows. So I always make sure every month we have something very special. It doesn't have to be every week. No. First of all, it's expensive, some of it, and but something special. I always look to see in town. I live in Princeton, and it's chock full of activities. I look to see on the calendar, the Princeton calendar, what is there this week that we can enjoy? There's so much to enjoy for free. You can do art classes, you can go to concerts. So we always look at that. So I'm constantly trying to get outside too. The biggest problem I think people have is that they don't walk enough. They're not outside enough. They're not with nature. It's such a healing way. And I work out every day. I do yoga or Pilates, and I make sure I do my steps. And I look at my goals and I see where I am and what I can do to make the next thing happen. And that I feel gives me more grounded peace, meditate, doing journals. Like I said, I just read Gabby Bernstein's book. So now I'm looking at being a super attractor.
Yay! I think you might already be one, but
thank you. I think I have some training there. But it's really, but that's what we all need to aspire to do, is to do what we need to do to bring peace, calm, and love to our hearts, souls, minds, and the world.
Beautiful. Thank you. Received. So I would love to, that feels like a beautiful ending note, but if there's anything within for BPP Wealth that you want to direct people to, I think if anybody's finding themselves starting this wealth planning journey, you're a great person to go to. If you're already in the wealth planning journey and you need some support, you have your BPP and you're going to build, protect, preserve, and you can have the help of Debra and her team to guide you along the way. I want to give you a moment for the closing thought. I thought what you just shared was beautiful, but there was one question that I have about when with kids do the money conversations need to start happening and how?
It's funny. It needs to have, there's a natural opening. So for my son, I have a 17-year-old, we have a 17 and 37-year-old. The 37-year-old was always frugal and really committed to not overspending. The 17-year-old's not frugal, overspends, and was not interested. But all of a sudden, there was this opening. He started getting involved with community service and started seeing in other people how he's working with immigrants, and they have a whole thing that they're doing here in Princeton, which is amazing, that he and a friend of his started. And once he started seeing that people really have no money and they really can't pay their bills and they don't have the means to, and they don't know what to do, that all of a sudden he started asking. And I think I've been asking him, like, let's do an app. Let me give you an allowance. And it was no. We have to be also mindful that the teacher will show up when the student is ready. And all of a sudden now I have this window. And now I'm so excited because, next year he's going to be going to college and I really want him to feel confident around money. So it was on my list of my dreams for this year that Will would really start to engage around budgeting and finance and goal setting. So it looks like it's happening. So we talk about it regularly. So we need to include our kids. We need to include our spouses. We need to not let somebody say, like, I can't tell you how many times, especially with older women, not younger women, but older women, they say, I'm not good at it. How do you know you're not good at it?
We're all not good at things when they're new. We're not good at anything when we,
Yeah. So I say, whether you're young or old, it doesn't matter. There's so many unbelievable trainers out there, that can actually start to educate you, to not poo-poo it, but to actually start paying attention to it, because what you measure matters. And our kids need to understand, not only about the money, but about the value.
Mm-hmm.
Why is education important?
Mm-hmm.
Why is spending time with your family important?
Mm-hmm.
Why is going on vacations and doing meaningful stuff together?
Mm-hmm.
Why is contributing to things important? What is it you want to contribute to? So whatever people's core values are at any age, that's an important conversation. And to have our kids really understand why those core values are what have your life be who you are,
Mm-hmm.
and that you want to pass on. I think that and the education of finance, money, goals, and really building futures that you can control are critical.
Amazing. The values, you touched on that lightly with your planning process, but I remember when you said that, I'm just like, gosh, so much of what I feel we are witnessing is the disconnect from values. And it's like that reconnection to what's important, what do you value? And a lot of this can be simple and somewhat mundane, and it doesn't need to be the most crazy thing. And, the amount of security that can come from that. And you have your book, Chaos to Joy, coming out of the chaos through the simplification, through the connection with values, opens up to joy. I know that's not the whole story of the book, but it's
But
what
no,
I'm
it really is,
ascertaining as
though.
part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really a core issue. So for all of us, if we could just start to really focus, with all this trying stuff going on,
Mm-hmm.
if we can start to communicate what's important to us and why, and
Mm-hmm.
it can't be a lot of things,
Mm-hmm.
just those really vital things,
Mm-hmm.
and start to let our kids and our family and people know why this is really important, and do our planning around it. So it's not only that we have our mouth. So why would people argue about politics?
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any human being that I work with
Mm-hmm.
that has politics on their core values. Why would you argue about something that's not a core value?
Mm-hmm.
Don't have that conversation. Strip it down. Talk about the part that is important. Well, I'm really worried about women's health care.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's talk about that. Let's not
Mm-hmm.
fight about things.
Right.
Let's talk about things.
Mm-hmm. But like in the division, the actual conversation gets lost. And not only the actual conversation, but the ability to be curious about what's underneath the division, like what's really going on there. Yeah. I find it fascinating. I was a psych major. I took, I think, one poli-sci class. I continuously ask myself, what is the role of politics? And so much is just genuine curiosity that drives me and leads me. And I wasn't really versed in history growing up. I'm learning a lot of things for the first time, and it's like really interesting. I don't know what else to say. It's like making sense in real time, very deep, complex issues that I know at most I might know 5% of. So it's like always the beginner mind. And then I may learn something new, but then having that filter, that thread of values, and understanding like, whoa, am I feeling triggered? What's really underneath that? There's just so much there. And it really has nothing to do with the division, but that can be a nice mirror or a jumping off point for such depth if you let it be.
Yes, and we got to stop fighting with each other.
Mm.
We really do. It's gotta, this bad behavior has got to stop. We've got to start breathing more and talking less.
And getting into nature, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we really do. And that's what we're doing. That's what you're doing with your podcast.
Thank you,
for
Debra.
that.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And I'll have in the show notes for BPP Wealth where people can come and find your work. And I know that you're a quick phone call away if there's any needs on the financial side. So thank you. And any quote, question for our listeners to ponder as we close today that you want to leave them with?
Yeah, what are your dreams? Write them down. Go get them.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. So we'll see you next week on the Lila Life Show, and make sure that you take the time to ponder what your dreams are. And if you are or aren't getting them, the reality check of that. So thank you, Debra, for being on the show today, and we'll see you next week.